Here they are, folks. New from Eluktronics, the MECH G2Rx. We have a 2060 model and a 2070 Max Q. Both are 15-inch chassis and do indeed feature the ElectroBoost technology. More on that later on in the review. More important than ever, check the description below. There's going to be some Easter eggs in there. There's going to be a few things left out of the review that will be covered in its own section within the description, as well as current pricing. Always click the links for that, as pricing on these things change rapidly. I once reviewed a laptop that was around $3,800. Within 48 hours after reviewing it, the price had dropped $400, and so many people skipped over that review. Had it been $3,400 and I had announced it, it probably would have sold a lot better. So with that said, please check the description. Very, very important, and let's get started. Inside today's chassis, we have the 9th generation Intel i7-9750H. Over here we have the RTX 2060, and over here we have the 2070 Max Q. We're running dual channel RAM in both solutions, two 8GB sticks at 2666. The review units today have Samsung NVMe drives, only 256 gigabytes, but feel free to spec this how you see fit. You also have another M.2 slot for your storage pleasure. Eluktronics has their own in-house solid states as well as Samsung, so believe me, lots of choice and lots of storage sizes. The network interface card is Intel's finest, the 9560, and the battery is the larger 62 watt-hour, foregoing the 2.5-inch drive. On this Optimus laptop, expect between 3 to 4 hours of runtime, of course not gaming, with a record high of 6 hours and 38 minutes on this 2070 Max Q unit. I have yet to be able to replicate that again, but it's just one of those weird things with Optimus. You may get some stellar battery life at times. Pretty awesome. The chassis weighs in at around 4.6 pounds. It has the aluminum lid, aluminum deck, and plastic bottom. The overall build quality here has a nice industrial look and is very sturdy. The power supply powering each one of these chassis is a 230 watt brick. The I/O on the left-hand side features a LAN port, a single USB 2.0, and separate mic and audio ports. The rear offers two mini DisplayPort 1.4s, an HDMI 2.0, a USB Type-C, and the plug for your power adapter. And on the right-hand side, you have two USB 3.0s and a card reader. Opening the laptop with one hand, very easy to do. Touchpad uses Windows Precision. It even has its own disable feature by tapping the top left-hand corner. You will be able to notice this with a little LED light that is lit when the trackpad is disabled. Keyboard is very special. It features brown mechanical key switches. We have a number pad on the right-hand side, and the actual keyboard deck itself is one of the stiffest tested on the channel so far. Now, mechanical keys are always going to have some sort of audible noise, but blue mechanical keys are very clicky, whereas the browns not quite as obnoxious. And inside of a laptop in which you may find yourself in some environments such as the library, I think that's a little bit more respectable. What are your thoughts? The Gaming Center's 4 features include the Easy Switch, very basic things such as being able to disable your keyboard and light bar lighting. You can set the power source for your display, different display features, and various other Windows key locks, hibernations, things like that, all of which are available within the Windows user interface as well as the NVIDIA control panel, but it is put into a nice package here. Per key RGB. You have the wheel, you can make everything white, which looks awesome. The breathing, wave, even music mode, brightness, speed, everything that you would expect from a per key RGB solution. And should you wish to do such per key, just go ahead and pick a color, push a key, and it will light up immediately. There's no waiting, there's no delay. As I click on this and drag, it is happening in real time on the keyboard. This is a very nice and fast responsive piece of software. The most important part within the Gaming Center is our power settings. We have 3 different variations: Office Mode, Gaming Mode, and Turbo Mode. All 3 of these can be cycled with the button to the left of the power button on the keyboard deck. So it's very nice being able to switch between these with the push of a button versus going into the software and manually clicking this stuff. Office mode will limit the CPU to 35 watts, but it will let the GPU run normal minus EluktroBoost. I like clicking on the Advanced tab and leaving the fans in very quiet mode, and now this laptop runs at around 30 to 32 decibels at idle. It's quite lovely. Game mode and turbo mode. They will allow the CPU to pull, in this case, up to 70 watts, and turbo mode enables EluktroBoost. Otherwise, both game mode and turbo mode work the same. What I like to do is set maximum fan boost right here, and then when I toggle back to office mode by hitting the button on the actual keyboard deck, I now have a very quiet machine. But when it's game time, I push that one time and boom, we have turbo mode, EluktroBoost is on, and I have maximum fans. Pushing this again will take us to game mode. Maximum fan speed still is there. Everything about gaming in turbo mode are identical with the exception of EluktroBoost. EluktroBoost is enabled through turbo mode, otherwise both game mode and turbo mode work identically. And what proprietary software would be complete without its very own system monitoring? Eluktronics did not skimp on the display. This is a full HD IPS panel at 144 Hz. It is the same display that is put into the Aero 15, part number LGD05Z0. Standard RGB comes at around 98% and Adobe RGB around 75%. Brightness typically on these panels right around 310 nits. Overall, this is a gorgeous display featuring thin bezels and the webcam and mic up top. Check it out. The 720p webcam and microphone are located at the top of the bezel. The brown mechanical keys sound just like this. And the microphone works in a way that when you activate maximum fans, you'll hear it for about 2 seconds, and then it'll silence itself to around 10% volume. An exciting feature within both of these chassis is the ability to actually undervolt inside the BIOS. You will have a factory undervolt of -050. Go ahead and set this to 125. The negative prefix sign right below there will automatically be set. You do not want to set this to positive as we do not want to add voltage. The overclocking feature here, all this does is to disable it. You will no longer be able to over or undervolt inside the BIOS. Disabling this has no relevancy to the ElectroBoost. There's nothing in the BIOS that is attached to that whatsoever. All in all, I am very thrilled to see this. I would like to see more manufacturers do this later. Press F4 and save. Nice job, Eluktronics. Now let's take a little bit deeper dive and see what the CPU is doing for starters. The turbo power limits on the 9750H in these chassis feature an 85 watt short-term power max and a 70 watt long-term, meaning under a sustained load by itself, as you can see in ATA64, you should be able to run around 70 watts. And when you introduce a GPU load such as Heaven, you will see that the CPU can still maintain between 60 and 70 watts at load. Now this is at the expense of some heat. Let's not fool ourselves. This is a small laptop now trying to dissipate a great deal of wattage, but I think it's nice that it's configured this way from the factory. You'll see why in a little bit, as well as it gives us a lot of tunability should we desire it. Now let's discuss, in my opinion, the most important feature of these laptops, and that is ElectroBoost. ElectroBoost is an actual hardware modification done on the motherboard for these 9th generation chips. This is not something that can be applied in a BIOS flash to their 8th gen customers. Eluktronics would love to be able to do this, but unfortunately it does not work that way, and I do have confirmation on this. So let's begin to show you how the scaling works with ElectroBoost laptops featuring a 2060 and a 2070 Max-Q, and we'll start off with something simple such as Firestrike. The stock 2060 scores around 15,200, but when you apply ElectroBoost, it will hit 18,000. Now, if you turn ElectroBoost off and try to overclock your GPU as high as you can, the best I could do was around 16.4. Now, these are just Firestrike runs after all, but an overclocked ElectroBoost did score around 18,800. Now moving on to the 2070 Max-Q, stock will run around 17,200. You are seeing this right, an Electro-boosted 2060 is producing a stronger graphics score than a stock 2070. And it does reflect this in actual gaming performance as well. A 2070 Max-Q with EluktroBoost now scores a 20,100 point mark. A stock 2070 Max-Q with an overclock scores around 18,400. And an EluktroBoost with overclock around 21,200. Now because we have two laptops here that are just one step apart from each other as far as graphics performance, and we have EluktroBoost in there to also narrow that gap even more, it was important for me to be able to show you actual performance as well as thermal performance of these laptops in a very static environment. Benchmarks are not going to cut it, but neither are actual benchmarks within the game that has like a 4-minute long loop. That's not going to be long enough to produce the kind of heat that a game will. But at the same time, I just can't run through a game as every single run is going to be different. So what I did is I took the Battlefield 5 firing range, I fired up the laptop, I let everything run on Ultra with a 90-degree field of view, and I let it sit there for 30 minutes. And this allowed for maximum heat soak. Now this took a great deal of time because I was unable to do all 4 of these tests at once because I only have a single Battlefield 5 account. So just this section alone took me half of a day to complete. So with that said, enjoy what you're about to see right here. For all of the remaining tests done today, we will have a CPU undervolt on the core and cache using the BIOS of negative 0.125. You will see a stock 2060 pull around 114 FPS, enabling EluktroBoost 30 minutes later just to get that heat soak. It's going to push that frame rate up to 130. But watch the GPU temperatures raise to 86 degrees. And then once they do so, you will see it lower the CPU performance to not compromise the GPU performance. So what's happening here is that since 87 degrees is the thermal throttle limit for these RTX cards, EluktroBoost is smarter than just putting the hammer down and making the GPU run faster. It actually will cap itself at 86 degrees. In and of itself is easy enough to do, but they will actually pull back CPU performance in order to not compromise the GPU performance. I have gameplay of full games playing Apex where it just hits 86 degrees and it stays there. And the CPU frequency and wattage drops down a little bit, but my frame rate stays really good and I'll have 97% GPU saturation throughout the whole game. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see that video, and perhaps I'll post it in its own separate link unlisted for you to check out. It's actually pretty remarkable. Despite the heat, it does not seem to compromise GPU performance, so well done there. And moving on to a stock 2070 Max-Q, pulls around 124 FPS, which, as you can see, falls just slightly under the Electro-boosted 2060. And then the Electro-boosted 2070 Max-Q around 138 FPS. Now to compare that to a laptop that has a full 2070 in it, such as the Aorus, that's pulling around 149 FPS doing the same exact test. All in all, the Electro-boosted 2070 Max-Q is getting relatively close to a full-blown 2070 inside a laptop. That's pretty impressive. So the whole time we did this, we made sure that the best foot was put forward with max fans. Maximum decibels from these chassis is around 52 dB, and your average gaming decibels, should you not wish to utilize max fan, is probably going to be pretty close to that 52 dB anyway, unless you're playing games that are a lot less intensive. But if you are using EluktroBoost, just expect to hear 52 decibels. Now, some of the class-leading laptops out there are hitting around 48, so we are very close, and this is a very petite chassis being asked to do nearly the impossible, and it's actually pulling it off, which is great. So what about a max tuned version of this? What can you do to do some power limit tunings to the turbo and wattages and things like that? What can be done there in conjunction with an MSI voltage curve editor? Well guys, I spent a long time trying to get this dialed in, and what you're about to see here is a clip from Battlefield 5 playing probably 90 minutes of gameplay with these settings that I'm going to talk about in just a hot second. and all of which apply to the 2070 Max-Q model as well, since they're going to pull relatively the identical wattages and temperatures and things like that, as they're relatively the same minus the CUDA cores. So here's what we've done. The EluktroBoost tuned version now, I have the GPU at around 1635 to 1650 megahertz at 0.750 volts. I have the CPU undervolted to negative 0.125 on the core and cache, and I actually fired up throttle stop to set the turbo power limits to both 40 and 40 for the long and short-term durations. Now you will get GPU maximum temperatures of around 80 degrees Celsius, and the CPU will max itself around 90, but you're getting really good performance now. As you can see by the frame rates, we are all on Ultra with a 90-degree field of view, and being able to get over 100 frames a second in a lot of your Battlefield 5 maps with a 2060 in a laptop. It's probably the fastest 2060 laptop in the world. I would also really like to see the ability to control your wattage within the BIOS. I know this can be done as a BIOS update with an HP Omen one time did include this feature. So if we could perhaps have that in a future update, and that way we don't even have to run throttle stop at all to control the turbo power limits, that would be awesome. Now this is a very niche situation, let's call it, because let's face it, not everybody's going to be playing these heavily threaded games that are also very strenuous on the GPU and the memory as well. So not everybody's a Battlefield 5 player, but nonetheless, I do want to put these through an environment that's going to stress them heavily, so you kind of have a worst case scenario to base this on. But if we could have some BIOS features that would allow us to tune these down to, let's say, 45 watts, 40 watts, 35 watts, 30 watts, all the way down to 25 watts in increments of 5 at the very least, that would be a really nice feature as well. Now the audio's been improved as well versus the last generation. There's been some updates in that regard. And all of those laptops, including these, are Sound Blaster certified, but that software will not come pre-installed on the laptop for various reasons. But you can download it from the Windows Store, and I'll leave a link in the description below so you can get that installed on your machine. So how does the audio sound compared to the Aero 15? Have a listen. This is an awesome laptop, and I have a great deal of experience with this chassis in general. Now you can get on forums where they talk about this chassis and it is being sold through many different third-party boutiques, and it seems like one vendor will have the best BIOS and another vendor will have the best gaming center, and a lot of times you can just sort of download from all these different vendors and make a hodgepodge of the best version of your laptop. And Eluktronics was like, okay, we're going to give you guys the best version of this chassis, period. They got the nicest gaming center, they have ElectroBoost, they can undervolt in the BIOS, the list goes on. This is the best version of this chassis with no shortcomings. You are not going to download a better feature to fit this chassis. It is all in-house with Eluktronics. If you want to go ahead and customize it with liquid metal, they are now offering this feature. This is a very cool product from a very reliable company with excellent customer service. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Thanks for watching.